Okay, so now we're going to be looking at our cathodoluminescence detector, which is this big black box that's hanging off of the chamber of our SEM, Scanning Electron Microscope chamber. In order to actually use this, we need to turn a couple pieces of equipment on in advance to using it, at least a half hour in advance. So we're going to turn on first the chiller, which is over here by pushing this power button. We're going to turn on power to camera, which is this box down here on the floor. You can see there's an on-off switch on that little box. Then we're also going to turn on these two controller boxes. We have the Monarch controller box on top, the Digiscan on the bottom. We do this by just holding in these big G buttons, and they'll go solid blue when they're on. It takes a couple minutes of these boxes being on, and then they're ready to use. And we can turn on computer 2 our software through the digital microscope software here. All of this is important because in order for the photomultiplier tube in this detector to cool properly, the software has to come on and everything else has to be on. So we usually do this process about a half hour in advance. We'll know when the detector is ready to use when this status light right here in the software turns green. Okay, so now we can see that our CL detector control box here shows a status light of green, which means the detector itself is cool in the black box. So now what we'll do is we'll take a look at our SEM monitor here. Notice where the stage is in our sample is well below the 10 millimeter line on the screen. This is important for the CL detector as we're going to wind up having a mirror that comes in and gets inserted to do the CL imaging. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and start at this height here that's given by the Z coordinate of the stage, which is just how high our stage is. What I'm going to do is come over to our CL system, and I'm going to insert the mirror. So I push this inserted button, and you'll see on this screen here the mirror come in and get inserted into the tool. So you see the image, the SEM image kind of fades as the mirror comes through the electron beam, and then as the mirror adjusts itself, we'll get that electron image back. Okay, so now in order to do this right, I've got to go to our help menu, go to a power user mode. Gives us a little bit more control over the mirror itself. I'm going to come down here to our settings box, and this gives me some mirror alignment control. Okay, now because this mirror is very fragile, we use very small steps to raise our sample up a little bit higher. So I'm going to raise it, because it's fairly close, very little. I'm going to raise it 0.1 step size, and I will go up just a little bit, and we'll watch this actually get a little bit closer in our chamber. Okay, so I'm a little bit closer. So now what I'm going to do is, if I have to turn off the chamber light inside our SEM chamber so that way we don't interfere with our imaging. So I'm going to go ahead and pause that chamber light. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over to our SEM imaging, and I'm going to do a view. What this will do is actually move the imaging capability from the SEM computer over to the tool. Right before I do that though, I'm going to go ahead and zoom in a little bit further on my sample, so that way we can kind of get that circle of the mirror, that aperture of the mirror out of the way. Okay, and since I've went ahead and changed the magnification, I will go ahead and just do a brief refocus, okay, on our facet of our crystal. All right, so now I'm going to go ahead and push view on our CL software. And you'll notice now on our SEM screen, everything has paused because we've taken control on the CL computer. Right now, I have not turned the CL detector on, so we won't get anything here. I'm just making sure the SEM image comes up. Because I'm still getting a little bit of the aperture of the mirror, I'm going to go ahead and change the actual pixel speed on this, so that way things just move a little bit faster for us. And then I'll go ahead and keep magnifying in just a little bit. There we go. So now I can do all the same controls I was doing on the original SEM computer on the CL computer. Now I'm going to go ahead and move our CL detector control to high. And this should allow us to start seeing if we can get a CL image. So you'll notice here that we have the beginnings of an image. I'm going to go ahead and move this step size down a little bit smaller to 0.05 since we don't have a lot of space here. And I'm going to go ahead and move this up a little bit higher. And so this becomes a delicate balance of how high our sample actually is compared to the mirror and how long of an exposure we do with our capture time. So the one thing you don't want to do is run your sample into the mirror. And so I think I'm probably at a pretty good spot, and now we can really start to see a nice CL image appear. To get a really good CL image, you have to play with kind of the ratio of the current, beam current, as well as the beam voltage, the resolution time, pixel time that's here in the scan, and the height of the actual sample. And with practice, you can get some very nice, crisp CL images that are much better than even the one here. But this gives you an idea of how to use the tool. Okay, so let's say we want to capture this image for future use. We can just say capture here, and this will get us to a spot where we can save the image. And that way you can save it as a JPEG or a PNG file, and you can take it elsewhere. All right, so there is a shutdown sequence for this piece of equipment. So we'll go ahead and run through that real quick now that we know how to take a good CL image. So the very first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and stop the view. So this stops the scan. It'll run through whatever image it's supposed to be taken, and then it will go ahead and stop that scan. And it will move control back over to the SEM computer. Okay, so we can see now control is back over to our SEM computer. I'm going to go ahead and turn off our detector by moving this sensitivity value to off. Okay, this will allow me to come back over to our SEM computer and return on the chamber light by highlighting this frame in blue and then re-pushing our pause button, and you can see the stage moved a little bit. You get an idea of just how close we are with the sample to that mirror. Okay, now I'm going to very slowly start to back off our sample height with our CL computer at that very small 0.05 step size. It's almost hard to see over here. After I back it off a few steps, I'm going to go up to that 0.1 step size and go ahead and drop it down. It's always good to move in very small increments near the mirror because it's quite fragile. So in case you push the wrong button, only small movements are made. Okay, once I've dropped the sample a fairly good distance away from the mirror, that it gives the mirror a lot of room to move, I'll go ahead and retract the mirror. So we'll come back over to our Monarch setup box and I'll push the retract button. It takes a minute, but we'll be able to see it here inside of our chamber retract. Oh, and there it goes. Okay, great. So we can, from here, we can go ahead and drop the position of our sample back down to 0. So that way we can go ahead and unload it. We can shut off our CL software. Okay, so now we're going to go in the reverse order and shut down our boxes, controllers, our chiller, and our power to the camera, so that way we can fully turn off the CL system. All right, so coming over back to our controller and Digiscan boxes, go ahead and turn them off by holding in the little G button, and it should go to a ghost mode where it'll start to flash. There we go. Both of those boxes are off, and you know that because it'll start to kind of fade in and out with the blue color. Then we come over to our power to camera box and turn that off, as well as the chiller with the power button. All right, once that's done, we can come back over to our SEM computer and we can pull out our sample. So we go back to our beam control button. I'm going to turn off the beam, and then I'm going to go ahead and vent the chamber. And this will take about a minute or two. Okay, so our chamber is vented, so we can go ahead and open the door to the chamber. We can go ahead and remove our sample and put it away. And then we can close our chamber back up, and we can pump down again at high vacuum, where we're going to leave the system and where we typically leave it for storage. So this will just take another minute or two as the system evacuates again. Okay, now we're ready to leave the system for the next user.